Hey skiers, I'm Jeff from skiessentials.com.
And I'm Allie.
Welcome to our first 2022 women's ski comparison. We've done a ton of men's comparisons so far, but we've had a lot of demand for women's comparisons this year. So we're going to do 3 or 4 of these, break them down in a similar way to how we do men's, basically by waist width. And yeah, it's pretty exciting. Just to touch base on women's skis in general, we get this question a lot. Are women's skis the same as men's skis? And it's different for each manufacturer. We'll kind of touch on that as we go through. Interestingly, I was kind of going through on my own before we started filming, and there are more skis up here that are built the same as the men's skis than the alternative, which I thought was very interesting.
It is.
It kind of feels like maybe a little bit of shift in the industry going closer to the same construction for men and women. So yeah. I think that's pretty interesting. And what we're going to do for this one that's a little different is we're going to go by brand. So in this case, we're starting with 2 skis, the Armada Reliance 88C and 92 Ti. Allie, I know you spent quite a bit of time on both of these skis.
Sure did.
And enjoyed them quite a bit. Very, very similar skis. Obviously there's a difference in width. One being 88 underfoot, one being 92 underfoot. Very similar wood cores in these skis. The 88 does have a slightly lighter wood core and uses carbon stringers, where the 92 Ti uses a slightly denser wood core and their articulated titanal banding. So a sheet of metal that's then kind of cut into slits in the front of the ski, designed to let the tip of the ski articulate and kind of twist into your turn, ease your turn entry, and then stiff and supportive underfoot. So really fun skis. What do you think about feeling the difference between the C and the Ti, Allie?
Well, I really like this is a new ski this year, so it's kind of fun when Armada or any brand comes out with a new ski and you get to try it. It's something you've never put under your foot, new technology, and I was really impressed with this ski. I liked both versions. X-Racer, I thought I'd like the 92 Ti a little bit more because of its stiffness. Definitely had that little bit more edge grip on ice, but I was really impressed with the 88C and how smooth and stable it was at speeds. It wasn't chattery at all, and I found it to be super light under your feet, less fatiguing throughout the day than the 92, which made it a little bit more approachable for me. And again, the performance, it stood up to that 92 Ti, just as good with that carbon construction. Also really love seeing the construction through the top there, just to kind of give you a hint at what they're putting into that technology.
Yeah, no, they're both great skis, and that's something that kind of mirrors how we felt on the men's side. We were pretty impressed by the Declivity 88C. Sometimes, and there are other skis up here where it'll come up in conversation. Sometimes when you have a carbon or a lighter version of a ski, there's a noticeable difference, and I think there's a difference between these skis, but the stability that you get out of this 88C is pretty impressive. They share a very similar shape, so mostly camber underfoot, a little bit of rocker in the tip, but pretty straightforward all-mountain shape. It's not like we get a tremendous amount of splay or early taper in these skis at all. And then we see a little bit of difference in weight. We brought our trusty scale that we added to comparisons this year. So the 88C comes in just under 1,600 grams, and the 92 Ti, although a little shorter, comes in around 1,650 grams. So a little bit more weight in that 92 Ti, but I don't think either one is tremendously heavy.
And this is another one of those that we were just talking about where the men's and the women's are the same.
Yep.
So if you don't like the graphic from the women's, there's always that option, and the size runs in the men's. Same construction, same technology, just different lengths available and colors.
Yeah, so in this one they basically just took the Declivity 92 Ti from last year and put a women's top sheet on it. This, both on the men's and women's side, is a brand new ski for 2022. Mm-hmm. So pretty exciting stuff from Armada. As a company that's traditionally known for making twin tips, I think their directional skis are pretty darn impressive now.
Yeah, I was really impressed. It was one of the skis I was interested in getting this year, and I'm definitely not a twin tip skier.
Yep.
And you get on something from Armada, and you're thinking this is just like a freestyle, the kids in the park ski, and no way, this is definitely a frontside resort ski for just about any lady out there.
Yeah, and very, very versatile. We kind of glossed over that, but in terms of performance and application, both of those skis, the C and the TI, they're very versatile. They've got a very even mix of performance characteristics. You can carve turns on firm snow, but then you can take them into bumps and trees and do a little bit of everything. And then between the TI and the C, you kind of focus on your level of aggressiveness. And either way, you're going to get a very versatile ski. Next ski is another new one for 2022. This marks a brand new collection from Atomic. This is the Maven 93C. Another one that I know you skied because I remember seeing the footage of it. This one is very, very light. So no metal in these skis whatsoever. Lightweight wood core, and then we get some carbon stringers as well. So pretty similar construction to what we saw back there in the Reliance 88C. But this Maven, we're already on. This Maven is even lighter, pretty impressively lightweight here, under 1,500 grams, all the way down to the 1,450 range. And in general, designed a little more for off-piste playfulness and maneuverability and stuff like that. So see a little bit longer tip rocker in this ski, kind of paired with some smooth early taper through the tip as well. It is a directional ski, so we get less early taper and less rocker in the tail, but there's still a decent amount back there. And just very, very light, quick, fun skis.
Another new one this year, so again, very excited to get out and try this one last winter. Atomic again is kind of reorganizing their lineup and getting something that's a little bit more front side oriented, but can go just about anywhere. It's got a lot of versatility where, like, if you're talking about the backland, it's a little bit more of that off-piste uphill travel. This is for that lady kind of looking for a little bit more resort, but with that tip rise, you're going to be able to get through some crud and powder if you want, and it's super light and it's going to perform well.
Yeah, definitely more of a resort application than the backlands. I'd say you could tour on these if you wanted a slightly stronger ski than like I don't know really what the women's equivalent would be on the backland side, maybe the 98, although that's a little wider. But yeah, very, 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 very fun skis. I think it's particularly good for somebody who prefers being off trail. You think about that all mountain skier. Do you spend more of your time on groomers? Do you spend more of your time off trail? Or which one do you like more? Like which one really, gets your juices going? And I think this is more for the lady who prefers going off trail. We get Atomic's Horizon tech in the tips and tails, so kind of a surfboard inspired shape. And it just gives the ski a little bit more float and less catchiness when you're kind of maneuvering and pivoting the ski, particularly in soft snow. So phenomenal soft snow ski. Next up, we got two Blizzard skis. We have the Black Pearl 88 and the Sheeva 9. Both great skis. I think this is really kind of where it's fun going by brand and looking at their skis together, because to me these are very different skis. Black Pearl 88's been around for a long time now. Very, very well-rounded all-mountain ski for women. We get True Blend wood core in here now too, so each length is kind of specifically tailored to work for the size skier who would be choosing that length. We get some carbon in the ski as well, so somewhat of a trend so far in the first few skis we've looked at. A lot of skis with wood and carbon. I think it's interesting to note that the Black Pearl, although we get that same wood and carbon construction, is a little heavier, up closer to 1,700 grams, so a little more oomph to it, a little bit more stability at speed. And then the Sheeva 9, drastically different ski, really. In this ski, we get a lot of tip and tail rocker, way more tip and tail rocker than the Black Pearl, especially noticeable in the tail. You get all that rise in the tail back there. And the Sheeva uses some metal in its construction, so we get carbon flip core DRT. which is one of my favorite terms to describe ski construction. DRT stands for Dynamic Release Technology. Always a fun reminder of what these are designed to do. So they have a metal laminate that kind of tapers and ends before you reach the tip and tail, and then that's where the rocker starts. So this ski is specifically designed to be able to release the tail edge really well. And Allie, I know you've skied both of these quite a bit, and I think it's pretty easy to feel a difference between them.
I definitely feel that the Black Pearl is very versatile. It's meant for a wide range of ladies with different abilities. It's very approachable. You can get on and resort ski. You can even pop in the woods and in a few moguls. It's going to be very responsive. It's a little heavier than some of the other non-metal skis that we've talked about it, so it's going to have a little bit more stability and smoothness when you get into ice. Where I find the Sheeva is a little bit different of a ball game. It's definitely got more of a certain type of skier that's going to be looking for the ski. Someone that likes that DRT tail that's going to allow them to release. Someone that's really looking for more versatility on the mountain, moguls, trees, powder. It's going to give you that little bit more float through the tips and a little, as we said, ease in releasing that tail. So people that like to swoosh their turns a little bit more, slow down in the woods, this is a great option for you. It's going to keep that stability under that foot with that metal, but that tip in the tail is going to allow you to swing that ski much easier for those variety of conditions. Where that Black Pearl really is meant for that front side skier, the resort skier lady that's looking for something that's stable and smooth.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on with that assessment. More of a specific type of skier here. You know, I like to think about it as somebody who, like, maybe you don't have a freestyle background, but you've got kind of some of that playful mentality at least. It's important to note the metal in the Sheeva 9 because it does add quite a bit of weight. We're up close to 1,800 grams, so it's kind of an interesting comparison between these two skis because the Sheeva is heavier, but it also has a more playful shape. So kind of interesting.
I like that you brought out that freestyle skier. I find a lot of snowboarders that are also skiers that are used to that kind of swoosh movement with their hips. They really love the Sheeva because of that nice, easy release of the tails.
Yep. Or like, you know, maybe somebody who used to ski in the park a lot and still kind of thinks about that kind of stuff, but is more of an all-mountain skier as they age, which I think happens to a lot of us park skiers. So yeah, I see a lot of skiers choosing this ski both on the men's and women's side in that application. You know, you got a little bit of a freestyle background, but these days you like to ski a little faster and more aggressively.
And we talked about men's versus women's. The Black Pearl does not have a men's version. They do have a Brahma, but it is a different construction, where the Sheeva and the Rustler are the same construction. So there is a men's and a women's version. Yeah,
and it's really interesting. We've talked about this before, but the difference between the Brahma 88 and the Rustler 9 is completely different than the difference between the Black Pearl 88 and the Sheeva 9, because the Brahma has 2 sheets of metal and it is a completely different animal. So we don't get that 2 sheets of metal on the women's side. And just a note on the Black Pearl 88, it's the best-selling women's ski in the world.
And has been for years.
So I think that's testament to its versatility, you know, a broad appeal. A ton of different skiers can get on it and we'll have a really good time. Next ski is the M-Pro 90W from Dynastar. This one's really interesting to me. It's always fun to talk about after the Sheeva 9, mostly because I really like the kind of techie, geeky similarities and differences between them. So we talked about that dynamic release technology. This Dynastar uses Titanal rocket frame. So through the forebody of the ski, the metal is pretty similar. You can see it kind of tapering into that rocket shape up there. In the tail of this ski, which is different than the tail of the Sheeva, the metal is wider. So instead of tapering, it actually widens to the end of the ski. It doesn't go quite to the end, same as the Sheeva, but there's much more metal back here. And then another big difference between these skis is the amount of tail rocker. So the M-Pro is much more of a directional shape. It's got a lot of tip rocker, as you can see up there, but not much tail rocker. So you get similar characteristics in soft snow when you're thinking about turn entry. You know, how the ski reacts with the snow, and the forebody is very, very similar between these two skis. But the M-Pro gives you a little more stability, a little more snap, and a little more responsiveness out of the tail. So something that we've talked about on the men's side, same ski, men's and women's, and this one is it's a real skier's ski. You have to be a pretty good skier, and it also likes to have a skier that will tell it what to do. Some of these skis really feel like they pull you into a turn. You know, this Ripstick that we'll look at next really feels like it hooks up and just takes you into a turn. With the amount of taper in this tip, you kind of have to initiate that turn. But really fun tool for an advanced expert level skier that can kind of leave their own signature on the mountain is how I think about the M-Pro.
I agree. I think it takes a very specific skier that has maybe ex-racer or someone that kind of knows what they're doing out there with that stiff tail. Yep. You're really going to have to complete that turn rather than swooshing your turns around. But it does give you a little bit more play in the beginning with that early rise in the tail and the tips. So it's going to be a little bit more fun out on the mountain than, say, a race ski that's really like looking to carve those turns. You're going to be able to go over some crud out there if it's pushed around. But it's also going to have a really nice edge hold underfoot and really be able to complete that turn. But I do think it's meant for a very specific advanced level lady who knows kind of what they're doing out there and that they like that stiffer tail.
It's definitely the feedback out of the tail is the big thing on that ski. You know, it's not like a ridiculously stiff ski. It's pretty stiff, but you can feel the difference between the tip and the tail and stiffness. Hybrid poplar wood core in here, so they blend poplar with a polyurethane material, which is pretty unique. So that PU material gives a little more vibration damping. This is a short length, but it comes in at 154. This is a 154 centimeter length that comes in just over 1,500 grams. So pretty lightweight, but you do have to kind of think about the shorter length there as well. So next ski up here is a really unique one, ski that I really think highly of. Not that I don't think highly of all the skis on this wall, but I think Elan's got some really cool stuff going on here. This is the Ripstick 88 W, and this is another one that's built the same on the men's and women's side. The 88 is actually the only Ripstick that shares the same waist width on the men's and women's side. So specifically, like you said, if you don't like the graphic, if you want to, I believe the men's is blue and orange. So if you'd rather have blue and orange, you can get blue and orange and you'll get the same performance. But pretty unique skis, very, very versatile all mountain skis. Elan's construction is really what sets these apart. Shape too, but I think the construction is really pretty notable. They use a tube-light wood core, so that refers to their carbon tubes. So they have two three-dimensional carbon rods that run along longitudinally just inside basically the sidewall of the ski. So you get two of them along the edges of the ski. We also get carbon on the inside edge. I say inside edge because these have a right and a left ski. You get more rocker along the outside edge of the ski, more camber along the inside edge of the ski. So that's kind of giving you edge grip on the inside edge of your outside ski when you're in a hard carving turn, but then it gives you just smoother, more intuitive turn entry, and when you're linking turns, they just feel very smooth. Those carbon rods provide more vibration damping than most carbon skis. So although they're pretty light, this thing comes in just over 1,500 grams, and this is a 170, so that's pretty darn light. Although they're light, although they're pretty soft flexing, pretty fun to ski, they have impressive stability, impressive vibration damping, and impressive edge grip.
The Ripstick 88 continues to impress me. I got on it last year, or 2 years ago I'd say, and I want to get back on it every year just to ski it because it's so much fun. I find it another very approachable ski. I always recommend this one. Intermediate, high intermediate, advanced skiers. I think it's a little bit more aggressive than the Black Pearl.
Yep.
It's got a little bit more stability, but it doesn't have that metal, so it's still forgiving underfoot. It's going to be less fatiguing throughout the day like the Black Pearl.
Yep.
But I find it to be a little bit more aggressive than the Black Pearl, so it's going to have a slightly more stability and edge control. But I also find it to be a little bit more playful than the Black Pearl. When you get into the woods and the bumps, it's the construction that they have with those carbon tubes really makes it reactive, and you really feel the energy under your feet as you're skiing. And instead of feeling that energy and being exhausted, it actually empowers you and makes you want to ski more.
Yeah.
So I really like their construction. My only complaint was left and right, but once I got used to that, I really actually enjoyed having a left and a right ski.
Yeah.
Because I did find the benefits in their extended rocker and extended camber on the inside-outside edge.
Yeah, the right and left amphibio profile is definitely something that you get used to.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of, some people, it turns them off in the immediate, but yeah, I think once you ski them a handful of times, you stop forgetting to put them on the right feet, and you realize that it's not a big deal. I'm glad you brought up the Black Pearl, and I thought it was worth bringing up this ski too. Among skis that are 88 underfoot that rely on wood and carbon in their construction, I do think you're right that you're getting a little more edge grip out of the Ripstick. Just some pretty cool technology in that ski and how they build it. Very, very good mix of playfulness and agility, but also edge grip and responsiveness. And just a very rewarding ski for a wide range of skiers.
Yeah, I would put everyone from, I put my mom on it last year, she's 75 and she loved it, great skier, but she wasn't fatigued after the long day and felt like she had all that control she needed. We put an X-Racer on it, and they equally powered that ski and did not find that they were overpowering it, so it definitely held for that aggressive, upper-level aggressive skier as well.
Yeah, talk about race backgrounds. We put your lovely boyfriend on those skis, and he did just fine.
He loved them.
He did love them. Next ski we're going to look at is the Fischer Ranger 92 Ti, and we have two Fischers on this wall as well, which, like I said earlier, it's fun to look at the differences between these two brands. The 92 Ti and the 94 FR are pretty easy to differentiate from each other. Quite similar conversation to what we had talking about the Black Pearl and the Sheeva. A little different in construction. These are kind of like almost feel backwards.
I was going to say it's backwards.
In the sense that the ski with more rocker has metal and it's heavier. Pretty much everything else we're going to look at is the opposite of that, where the ski with more rocker is going to be lighter. That's the case here. So in the 92 Ti, we get a wood core. We get Fischer's carbon nose, so this super thin carbon tip, which is found on all their Ranger skis. One of my favorite things about these skis, it's just so cool to look at in person. It's just unbelievably thin.
See how light it is,
Yeah, it's just so thin. There's just nothing up there, so that really takes away a lot of swing weight, which helps a lot. It also gives you really good precision up here. Carbon is a very stiff material, so when you enter a turn on this ski, it's responding immediately. In this 92 Ti, the carbon nose actually physically connects to metal. It kind of tapers pretty thin into the center of the ski, then it connects to metal in the same thickness, and then that metal goes really wide all the way out to the edges of the ski, which you can actually see the metal all the way to the edge underfoot. And that gives the ski quite a lot of stability. So where we talked about the Ripstick 88 being pretty appropriate for a wide range of skiers, I would put this more at the upper end of the ability level and level of aggressiveness. Just over 1,600 grams, so they're not crazy heavy, but they are pretty stiff. And you feel that in the tail. You get a good amount of rocker in the tip, but you don't get much rocker in the tail, really. It's at least very low splay, pretty squared off tail there, and pretty stiff. So a lot of power out of the tail of the ski. And then the Ranger 94 FR, on the other hand, uses significantly less metal, so that carbon nose does not connect to metal. There are two independent metal sheets under here just for binding retention.
Yeah.
So the metal's not really adding to the performance of the ski at all. That brings the weight down. This thing's 1,450 grams. And then we get basically the same tip rocker profile, but more rise and more splay in the tail. So lighter, softer, more rocker, and you can really feel a difference between these skis when you ski them.
I find that the Fischer, both of these are for specific skiers looking for something specific. With the 92 Ti, I think it's actually very similar to the Dynastar, where it's got that kind of more of a fun tip, easy tip to get into things, a stiffer tail. So it's definitely in that upper aggressive skier side. Someone who really wants that power underfoot, but wants to be able to maybe hop into the trees with their tips. Again, it's going to be a stiff tail, so it's not really meant for that off-piste. But Fischer does have that, off-piste
It's
style.
similar to the Dynastar. You know, if you're going to take it off-piste, you just have to be a pretty good skier.
Yeah, you have to understand how to release your tails.
Yeah, it's all about unweighting tails, which is a common conversation when we do these comparisons. And you have a flatter, stiffer tail that requires the skier to kind of physically pick the tail off the snow to get it to come around. Where then you have a Ranger 94 with all that tail rocker back there, even kind of a twin tip. That's going to smear a lot more, so you don't have to physically unweight it as much.
Yeah, again, it's a skier looking for that schmeary ski that's looking for a little bit more flexibility of off-piste, woods, moguls, bumps, that really likes to be able to have that tail release without having to work too hard for it. Again, a super light and approachable ski, but it's definitely designed for someone that is looking to get off-piste a little bit more than on the resort rim trails.
Yeah. No, yeah, 100%. Super playful, like you said, very, very fun to ski, but there's still like some precision to it too. It still has that carbon nose. I think you can ski other skis that have a similar shape and feel a little looser. You still get some pretty nice feedback out of that Ranger 94 FR. But yeah, really two really good skis. With the success of the Ranger 102, the pink ski that's 102 underfoot, you don't see these nearly as much, but they're great skis, and I always like to think about stuff like that, like what ski do I feel like I should see more but don't.
I think the 92 Ti would be one I would think we should see more of, especially in Stowe. It would be a great, resort ski for someone who just wants a little bit, on that powder day that it's 2 inches.
Yeah, right.
Like, that's a great ski. It's going to power right through all that crud when it gets pushed off. It's going to give you the float when you want it.
Yeah. We did a full review of the men's Ranger 92, which these skis are identical, men's and women's. In fact, you see women choosing all sorts of different top sheet graphics. Men too. Like Fischer's kind of cool the way that they're doing skis right now. You just pick your color instead of.
I think we're going to see that a lot more of a unisex lineup from brands. With everything going on in the world, I think we're going to see a lot more of that in the future. Yep,
I agree 100%. But yeah, we did a review of the men's ski, and I remember taking it out and skiing with Bob, and we both kind of stopped midway through our testing day, and we were like, why don't you see more of these? Like, it's just, it's such a good ski, especially for somewhere like here, like Stowe, where you get firm snow, but we get a lot of those 2 to 4 inch powder days, whatever you want to call them. And that ski really shines in that application. Next is the Core 91 W from Head. This one's another ski that's very unique, mostly unique in its construction and its overall feel. So uses a really unique blend of wood core of materials in this ski. So very lightweight wood core, then we get carbon, we get choroid, and we just get a really, really unique combination of elements in this ski. There's graphene as well. Graphene's always really cool to talk about. It's the lightest and strongest material in the world. Fun fact. So even lighter than carbon, and even kind of stiffer than carbon too. So the weight of this ski is very light. What length is this? This is a 163 that comes in at just about 1,500 grams exactly. So really light, but
super stiff.
Incredibly stiff. Easily the stiffest ski on this wall. I wouldn't even have to flex any other ski up here, and I would put my life savings on the fact that that's the stiffest ski up here. So we talk about it quite a bit. What happens when a ski is lightweight and also very stiff? It means it's very responsive. So this thing reacts to skier input immediately. which some skiers really like, some skiers don't like. So this is kind of one of those skis where you need to be a specific style skier, in my opinion. Its shape is very versatile. It's really the flex pattern where things get interesting. So not too much tip rocker up here, just a little bit. Nice early taper, very similar to like a Santa Ana shape when we get down there. A lot of camber underfoot in this ski, just where some of that stiffness is coming from, and then just a little bit of tail rocker too. The taper shape in this ski is really important. If it didn't have that taper and it was this stiff, it would be like the catchiest thing in the world. But head kind of shapes it accordingly, so it's not too demanding. But in my opinion, you should be a pretty good skier if you're going to get a Core 91 or any core really, because of how stiff and how responsive they are.
I totally agree. It's one of those skis that has a following, but if you've never skied it, I always recommend people demo it before they purchase it because it's got such a unique feel and responsive feel. Yep. Some people feel like it's skiing them, so it really requires a skier who's, you don't have to be that strong, but you have to know what you're doing because it's
active and engaged.
And really, you can't be a lazy skier on this ski. There's no, forgiveness in the tail and that stiffness. So again, it's got a unique skier, but it is a great, high-performing ski at a super lightweight. So for that lady that is just so tired of lugging heavy skis around, but is still a advanced expert skier, this is a great option.
Yep. Yeah, and it's there's plenty of skis out there if you're more of the relaxed skiing style. Black Pearl 88, it's a great ski. Cruise groomers all day long. This thing just prefers a more engaged skier. I specifically did a ton of testing on the Core 99, and you just have to be kind of be over it and on it. And when you are, there are benefits to this ski that nothing else really has. It's lightning quick, and it literally will go as wherever you want it to go immediately. But then, if you make a mistake or if you get tired and your weight gets in the back seat, it'll let you know.
I almost feel like it's a good comparison to the Santa Ana because of the shape, and this
Totally.
has metal in its construction. So, it's definitely a more aggressive ski, but I actually find this sometimes to be a little bit more forgiving because of the release in the tails and just the shape and camber under the foot is just a little bit more forgiving than the head core. Again, it's going to be heavier. That one's lighter than the Santa Ana, but I feel like the shape is actually very similar.
Yeah, we had that conversation on the men's side a lot. Originally when they had the Core 93, the initial version of that, Nordica still had the Enforcer 93, and it was an obvious comparison, like almost the same exact shape. But in those skis, these are a little different. On the men's side, there's like a 600-gram difference between them. So it really changes how they feel. I think you're right. Even though that ski is a little heavier, I do think there's a little bit more forgiveness to that because it's less reactive. So great ski, but certainly for a specific type of skier, a good skier. And I think it would be, it would be a shame if we skipped over this without mentioning its touring capabilities. A lot of these skis are pretty lightweight up here, but I think the Core is specifically one that perfectly reasonable to put an alpine touring binding on there, especially for like an eastern skier, somebody who's doing most of their touring within the resort. Next up, we have two Liberty skis, and although they're not new models, they both are new for 2022, carryover shapes, new construction. So basically the theme here is that both of them get one extra strip of metal. And by strip, I mean vertical strip of metal. So these use VMT, vertical metal technology. So the Evolv 90W, these skis kind of take the place of the V series for a long time, not for a long time, but for a couple of years there, Liberty had the V series as well as the Evolv series. The V series had 3 vertical struts, 3 metal struts. The Evolv skis had 2. The V series has gone away. Now the Evolv skis are the narrowest skis, and they get 3 strips of metal. So this is 100% a directional ski. Same basic ski on the men's side. The wood core might be a tiny bit different, but basically the same thing on the men's side. So we get quite a bit of tip rocker up here, not like a crazy amount, not Sheeva amounts of tip rocker, but a good amount of tip rocker up here, and then a flatter tail. So 100% directional, we get that kind of squared, flat finish to the tail. So it's going to complete a carving turn very nicely. And then that metal construction, the 3 strips of metal give this a pretty strong flex pattern. And those metal struts also provide really good counter flexing. So the ski's not bouncing around off the snow very much. You retain really good connection, really good edge contact. And then on the other side of the spectrum here, we have the Genesis 90. So this ski uses a lighter wood core, used to have no metal in it. Now it has 1 vertical sheet or vertical strip of metal. Still a directional ski, but more rocker, and we're getting more closer to what I would describe as a twin tip. So you can see all the tip rocker in this ski, quite a bit more than the Evolv. A little bit more taper too in how they shape the tip. And then the tail is really quite a bit different. So all that tail rocker back there, good amount of splay, not quite a twin tip, but getting close. And then a good amount of taper again. So far easier edge release in this ski. Going back to talking about these skis, kind of the opposite of that, more similar to the differences in the Fischer. I think adding the vertical strip of metal in the Genesis has definitely beefed up its construction a little bit, given it a little bit more stability, but this thing is still extremely light, very quick, very easy to maneuver, where this ski is stronger, really good stability, and more of like an all-mountain ripper.
If you've ever tried Liberty and didn't like it in the past, I recommend retrying it because they've definitely improved their technology and the construction. As you said, with that vertical metal in there, you can actually see it in the Evolv right here. You can see the 3 strips. As you talked about in those tips, some of the complaints from a couple years ago was the chatteriness. I think they've definitely handled that with their new construction, and they've made them a lot smoother a ride. And actually, this is probably the ski that gets the most surprising reviews. People look at them and they don't even want to try them. They get on them and they don't want to stop skiing them.
That's been a trend in our ski test for a number of years. Is people like, the higher end female testers in our test, some of which are extremely good skiers, they like kind of brush it aside. Yeah. But it's a really impressive ski.
And I think it looks different than any ski out there. So if you're really looking for something that like nobody else is on, it's not a Volkl like the hundreds of people, Blizzard, it's the top selling ski. It's definitely got a different look, but it's still going to perform like you want. Like the Evolv 90 is a great frontside ski for an aggressive lady, even a high intermediate. I think it's a little bit more approachable than the Fischer 92, to be honest.
Yep, I think that's completely fair.
Yeah, but I think it's really smooth and stable when you get into ice and crud. Yep. Where the Genesis, I think, is going to be a little bit more forgiving, more of that freestyle skier. Maybe someone that is used to twin tips is going to really like that one. It's going to be a little bit easier to release that tail. Yep. If you're doing a little bit more wood skiing and mogul skiing, the Genesis is going to be better than the Evolv because of that tail shape and that the shape of the ski.
At least easier, more forgiving. Yes. If you're going to ski moguls all day long, I would want to take a Genesis. If you're going to carve turns on groomers 90% of the day and then go into moguls or trees 10% of the day, then you maybe want to think about Evolv. Yeah. It's kind of how I think about those two skis.
The construction still makes it very responsive. So even with the Evolv in the trees, you're still going to get that feel under the feet where it's very reactive when you're popping in and out. So you're not going to have a problem. But again, it depends on the ratio of where you're trying to ski.
Yeah, and skiing style too. I think we were back here in Blizzard when we were talking about this, but say these skis are the same width, so and they're a lot of ways going to handle the same snow conditions. Some skiers, depending on your background or what you've skied before, you prefer a little more feedback out of the tail. You get kind of that rhythmic pushback from the ski that'll push you into your next turn. Some skiers prefer more tail rocker, where the ski is driftier and you set it into a skidding turn, instead of having that rhythmic snapback, it just keeps going. So it kind of depends on your skiing style, whether you want more of a long, slow, slarved turn or more of a quick back and forth style of skiing. I think we may have glossed over weight too. If I didn't mention weight, so the Genesis 90 comes in at 1550, and this Evolv should be a little heavier with the 3 sheets of metal. Yeah, so more, almost 100 grams heavier, getting close to 1650. So you can see the difference in weight from adding 2 more of those vertical struts. So yeah, next up we have 2 skis from K2. We have the Mindbender 88 Ti and the Mindbender 90C. I think among brands that we've looked at so far where we have 2 skis up here, these are pretty close in performance, kind of going back to Armada and the Reliance 88C versus the 92 Ti. Very similar shapes there and very similar shapes here. More a difference in construction and weight, and then who that ski is going to be best for. So in both of these skis, K2 is all about controlling the amount of torsional stiffness in different parts of the ski, which I think is really cool. So in this 88 Ti, they use Titanal Y beam, and basically there is a Y-shaped piece of metal in the ski. So up along the edges and the forebody of the ski, full width underfoot, and then it tapers into basically the same thing that we saw in the tail of the Sheeva. So kind of another one to compare to other manufacturers. In a lot of ways, this is using like Volkl construction in the tip and then Blizzard construction in the tail. It's kind of combining like a Kenja with a Sheeva and how they're placing the metal. Obviously, again, kind of backwards of this Dynastar. So we get, actually, we don't think we've talked about this yet. So this is something that I always think is really interesting. Flip this Dynastar over and you've got a very similar application of metal. So more metal in the forebody of the K2, more metal in the tail of the Dynastar, less in the tail of the K2, more in the tip, or less in the tip of the Dynastar. So reverse mullet and traditional mullet. So this ski is more business in the front, party in the back, which is true with the C too when we get there. So as you're initiating a carving turn, you get the benefit of metal along the edge. So very strong, stable feel. In a carving turn, metal is right on the snow, so you get good strength, good vibration damping. When you want to release your turn, there's less torsional stiffness in the tail because the metal doesn't reach the edge of the ski. So it's allowing you easier turn exit. This ski is right around 1,500 grams, which certainly isn't bad at all for a ski with metal in its construction, and definitely a directional all-mountain shape. So quite a bit of tip rocker up there, much less tail rocker, not a twin tip by any means, and then a good amount of camber underfoot too. And that shape carries over to the 90C as well. This one's a little under 1,500 grams, and basically, like I said, same exact shape here. Good amount of tip rocker, a little bit less tail rocker, 100% directional. In this ski, it's carbon spectral braid. So there's kind of a cross-hatching braid of carbon in this ski. That weave or braid is tighter in the forebody and then looser in the tail. So same kind of thing. As you're initiating a carving turn, you get a strong feel up here in the tip, but less torsional stiffness in the tail, which allows for easier release. The 90C is going to feel lighter than the TI on your feet. It's not a drastic difference in weight on paper, but I do think they feel lighter.
The thing I can compare it to the most is honestly the Kenja. I find that even though they lessen the metal in the tail, it still performs like a similar, stiffer tail, not quite as stiff, so it's going to have a little bit more forgiveness, but it's not quite like the Sheeva, which really has that immediate tail release.
Yep.
I find the differences between these to be much different than the differences between the Yumi and the Kenja. I find the C version of the Mindbender to really hold its edge and still perform as nice as the metal version.
Yep.
The metal version is going to be a little bit more fatiguing just because it's a little bit heavier.
A little heavier, a little stiffer.
But it was, again, one of those skis that really surprised me with its edge control. On the groomed trails, it really performed well. It was smooth and stable. I felt like I could really get into just about any condition. I find if someone's really looking for that 70% groomed and a little bit more for the trees, I think this is a great option for that.
Yeah, both of these.
Because it's still going to give you that high performance on those groomed trails, but it's going to be a little bit more forgiving in the woods than some of the other skis that we've talked about that are pure on-trail skis.
Yep.
Again, they have really fun graphics, so K2 really pushes that boundary to make it pop on the wall, pop on your skis, pop in the resort. So if you're looking for something that isn't what everyone else is skiing, this is a great option. It's going to hold up well. Again, a wide range of skiers.
Yep.
You know, this is going to be a little bit more approachable for someone that's looking for something less fatiguing and a little bit more forgiving in their turn shapes. So maybe someone that's not as aggressive at ending their turns and needs a little bit more forgiveness, this would be a great option. Where this is for someone that's a little bit more aggressive and knows how to link their turns. But again, they definitely lighten that tail so that you can pop it out a little bit more.
Yeah, I always like to think about these skis as having a pretty similar application. You know, like the shape is almost identical between the two. So in a lot of ways, they're kind of accomplishing the same thing. Like you said, both of them can carve turn, then you can hop off trail too and ski some moguls and some trees. I think you hit the nail on the head with like level of aggressiveness. If you're more aggressive, stick over here in the TI. If you're less aggressive, maybe the C is going to be better for you too. And then the same thing carries over to skier weight a little bit too. So if you're like a really light skier, maybe you're like tipping the scales at 100 pounds or something like that. You know, I know some women out there that are like Allison Kozar up the road at our boot shop. You know, very, very lightweight skier. I think something like this might actually work better for her because she's lighter. But then you get, you know, even like a heavier skier that's not as aggressive, maybe this would be better just based on your weight. And if you're unsure about that, you know, those are great questions to ask us and pick up the phone and we can let you know our opinion.
Another brand that I feel relates to these as the new Reliance is.
Yeah, definitely.
They're
100%.
very similar, one with carbon, one with that metal.
Yep.
Different constructions, so they have a slightly different feel, but they're going to get that same ability level, same thing, weight versus ability.
Yeah, and these are even closer in waist width. You know, over here we were 4 millimeters apart in waist width. These are only 2 millimeters apart in waist width, so very similar skis. Just, different feel and different, slightly different skier that should be choosing them because of that feel. Next ski up here is the Pandora 94. This is actually another one. Those K2s actually cross over construction, men's and women's, almost identically. The shapes and the width are a little different, and specifically in the TI version. But this is actually the same as the men's Sick Day 94. So in this ski we get a relatively light wood core and we get carbon stringers. So kind of going back to construction that we talked about, you know, I feel like we started off this comparison by talking about a number of skis that had wood and carbon stringers. Back to that in the Pandora 94, but now we're quite a bit wider. This is the widest ski up here at 94. It's kind of, we got one more 94 down there at the end, but kind of pushing the boundaries of where we wanted to cut off this comparison. So with a pretty lightweight construction, wood and carbon, 94 underfoot, and we'll look at the shape in a little bit. This is probably one of the best skis we've looked at so far in soft snow. You know, going back to the Sheeva, this one's great too. This is just going to be a little bit lighter, which for some skiers is a big benefit. So this is on the longer side. I believe this is 165. I thought it might even be close to 170. This one's just 1,400 and call it 40 grams. So very, very lightweight. That wood core and the carbon stringers provides a very soft but bouncy flex pattern. So a lot of energy in these skis. And kind of going back to talking about Armada at the beginning of the comparison, Line is definitely known for their twin tips. This is not a twin tip, so we get good amount of tip rocker up here, but certainly a directional shape. You know, far less tail rocker, and just looking at them, you know, that's not a twin tip at all. It's a directional ski. So really, really good for a skier who you probably care more about tree performance and soft snow performance and stuff like that than carving performance. Certainly something that you could put an alpine touring binding on. We talked about that on the sick day side on the men's skis quite a bit. And yeah, just a very, very good lightweight all-mountain ski that almost kind of blurs the line between all-mountain and free ride.
I agree. It's definitely that super responsive lightweight ski, definitely meant for softer conditions. I like to compare it to the Maven, another soft snow lightweight
great
skis.
Comparison. Yep.
Something that, you know, for someone that maybe wants to put a ship binding and resort ski it on some slight powder days, you know, a couple inches, or softer conditions out west, or they want to just be able to go uphill only once in a while, this would be a great option because of how light it is and its soft snow performance.
Yeah, no, they're great skis, and yeah, I'm glad you brought that one up because that's probably the closest comparison to the Pandora 94 that we've talked about so far. Pretty similar in weight too. Next ski up is a good one. This is the Santa Ana 88. So, gosh, I feel like we've looked at a lot of very lightweight all mountain skis. This is kind of like if you took the Black Pearl 88 but put some metal in there. So we often talk about Brahma versus Enforcer 88. It's a little different conversation on the women's side between Black Pearl and Santa Ana. So this ski has a wood core and Nordica's terrain-specific metal, and it comes in at almost 1,800 grams. So I believe that's the heaviest ski that we've looked at so far. If it's not the heaviest, it's like tied at the heaviest. But what you get when you get a little bit more weight, typically you get more power and more vibration damping, which is certainly true in this ski. So the terrain-specific metal is pretty cool. They basically use like the same thickness metal or width metal in all of the Santa Ana skis, but as you drop down in waist width, that means there's a greater percentage of metal to surface area. It's kind of a good way to think about it. So among the Santa Ana line, the 88 is the strongest. You know, you get the most metal to width. Actually, we have one narrower now.
But it
the
doesn't
84.
have...
Yeah, not to confuse people, there is a narrower Santa Ana, but it doesn't quite share the same recipe as these skis. So probably the strongest ski we've looked at so far in terms of vibration damping, stability at speed, all that kind of stuff. But you still benefit from a very versatile shape. So same thing as the men's Enforcer side. We get nice long tip rocker up here, very long, smooth, early taper, and then decent amount of tail rocker too, not like a tremendous amount of splay back here, but enough rocker and taper to give it a pretty playful, versatile feel. So this ski is really combining strength and stability with versatility in its shape.
I think the Santa Ana series and all of their series from the 88 up are basically very aggressive, strong, powerful skis.
Yeah.
But I find that sometimes their shape is actually more approachable than some of the other shapes that we have up here that don't have that metal and heavy construction.
Yep.
Because of the metal, as he said, it is super smooth and stable. It can go through just about anything. I love the tip shapes of Nordica skis. It's something that, you know, with our 2 to 3 inches that we get here on the East Coast, it's going to go right over it. You're not going to feel it, where you're still going to get that strength throughout the turn once you hit it underneath the foot. I find that tip and a little bit of tail is really fun in the woods as well. You're able to maneuver around those skis. It definitely isn't quite the tip rise as some of the skis that we've talked about that are more leaning towards that wood skier, mogul skier. But I do find it is, for someone maybe that's 50-50, I find it pretty easy to release the tails on the Santa Ana, even with its relatively low tail rise.
Yeah, you know, very strong ski. I'm trying to look for other very strong skis up here. You know, M-Pro 90, Evolv 90, both these skis have a lot of stability, a lot of vibration damping. I do think the Santa Ana has a little bit easier edge release over the tail than some of these skis. So maybe you lose a little bit of precision on trail, but you gain some forgiveness and maneuverability off trail. Very, very good, like one ski quiver type of ski
Yeah.
for an Eastern skier. We see a lot of people on the Santa Ana 93 as well around here. You get, a little bit more width, a little lighter feel on your feet, kind of. Not really, because it's basically the same construction, but for some reason the wider ones like feel lighter.
Because they have a little less metal
Per
ratio.
ski, yeah, exactly. But if you want more firm snow performance, this 88's fantastic.
I really like to talk about it next to the Kenja, which we're going to get to. But basically,
Yeah.
when you're talking about the Kenja next to it, this is a little bit more forgiving in that turn shape, like we were talking about with some of the other ones over here, just because of its tip and tail rise.
Yeah, and kind of nitty-gritty details at this point, but a little bit shorter of a turn radius in this ski than the Kenja too. So when you're carving turns, it feels like it comes across the fall line a little easier.
Yeah.
So among skis with metal, it's pretty approachable and doesn't require like a crazy amount of skier input, which is nice.
I don't think you need to be an X-racer to get on this ski.
No, not at all. No, I agree 100%. Next ski is the Rossignol BLACKOPS Stargazer. This is essentially the women's version of the Escaper. Very, very similar, and it's kind of cool to have this ski after the Santa Ana because I think they share a lot of similar characteristics as well. This is pretty long. I believe we have a 170 here, and we get lighter construction in the Escaper, the Stargazer. So this one comes in more like 1,650 grams. There's all sorts of different stuff in these skis. I probably won't remember everything in them. But they have a wood core, they have damp tech, so they use some rubber in the tip. There is still kind of an air tip up there. And then they use, I believe these get Diago fiber, so kind of some cross hatching, very similar to what we looked at in K2 in the carbon spectral braid. That's kind of how they're delivering the torsional stiffness in this ski. But shape is actually very similar to the Santa Ana skis. On the men's side, we've talked about the similarities between the enforcers and the senders, or in this case, the escaper. So, that same kind of long tip rocker, but not like drastic splay, and then very similar taper too. So kind of the idea behind this shape, and we talked about this with Nordica a lot, is if you're riding a flatter ski, you get a pretty maneuverable feel. You have a shorter effective edge. But the further you tip it on edge, you're actually engaging more and more of the tip of the ski. So kind of the harder you ski it, the more stable it feels and the more edge grip you get. Again, 100% directional ski, so certainly less tail rocker back here, but enough tail rocker to give it some nice maneuverability too. And I think the Stargazer, for some reason last year it got overlooked quite a bit. I think it's natural for some skiers to want to focus on the wider models. Even yourself, I know you own a Rally Bird.
I do.
Which is in a lot of ways the wider version of this ski. In my opinion, this is the most versatile ski that Rossignol makes now. So especially now that they've changed the experience line, so the widest experience ski is 86 underfoot. This ski ranges from 90 to 94, and then your Rally Birds are like 104 or something like that. So very versatile construction. It's got some stability to it, but it's also pretty lightweight. It's got a nice kind of even flex pattern. It's not too stiff. It's not too soft. Some tip rocker, some camber underfoot. It's just a very, very well-rounded ski. You can pretty much do anything on the Stargazer. So another great candidate as kind of a one ski quiver type thing.
It was another one of those skis that really surprised me with no metal in the construction, with how well and smooth and stable it was. The construction they used really dampens the ski and makes it that smooth and stable ride. Very similar, I feel like, to the ski of the Santa Ana because of the shape. Yeah. But I do find because it's lightweight, it is maybe a little bit more approachable. But when we were talking about that ease of turn in those moguls and in the tight trees, I still find that the Santa Ana might have a little bit more release than, say, the Stargazer. But as they move up in size, I think they get both versions get a little bit more tail rise. So as you get to the Rally Bird or the Santa Ana, in the larger waist widths, they definitely increase their tail taper in order for you to release in those deeper or tighter spots.
Yep. Yeah, no, it's a great ski. I mean, I feel like a lot of people overlooked it
Mm-hmm.
just because, like you said, it doesn't have metal, or it's just kind of right in the middle there. I feel like Rossignol, like, not to point fingers, but I kind of think they screwed up the marketing on it a little bit because they put it more into their like free touring category, and I would say that for most skiers, it's more appropriate just to put an alpine binding on there and ski it in the resort. Maybe some people will choose it for alpine touring, but to me, its highlight is just for somebody who wants, east or west, wants one ski that they can take out and feel confident that it'll perform no matter where they take it.
Which makes me realize it's actually very similar to the Ripstick 88 because it doesn't have that metal, but it still has that high performance because of the construction. So it's going to be less fatiguing throughout the day, but you're still going to get that performance that you want out of it for all of those conditions. So a great one ski quiver.
Yeah, this 170 is the big one, so this is 94 underfoot, so maybe it would compare closer to the Ripstick 94, because there is a Ripstick 94 for women. But yeah, I think it's something that I haven't really thought about, but I think you're spot on. Is the performance of these skis are relatively similar. Slight difference in their flex pattern.
Yes.
The Elans are a little softer
rise.
and a little springier. These are a little stiffer and maybe a little bit more precise. But yeah, good comparison there for sure. So next up we have two Salomon skis. In fact, the last 5 skis here we've got 2 Salomons and 2 Volkls. And I think these are a lot of fun to talk about. So here we have the Stance W 88 as well as the QST Lux 92. And gosh, among brands that have 2 skis up here, these might be the furthest apart. Maybe the Volkls are the furthest apart. I'm not sure, but we'll talk about that and we'll make a decision. So these skis are built a little bit different on the Stance side, men's versus women's. This is almost the same as the Stance 90 for men, but a little bit different. Not quite as heavy of a wood core in this ski. So slightly lighter wood core, but we still get metal twin frame. So there's 2 sheets of metal in this ski, and what Salomon does, which is pretty similar to what Volkl does, is they remove little windows. So this sticker is kind of covering up about half of the window, but there's a section in the forebody of the ski and a section in the tail too, where they take out the metal and they put in their CFX material instead. So they're kind of shedding some weight in the extremities of the ski, bringing down swing weight. But same conversation that we had with K2 and that we will have with Volkl, when you put the metal along the edge of the ski, you're still retaining really good vibration damping and good stability. Among skis with 2 sheets of metal, we often talk about how the Stance skis have a little bit more freeride influence in their performance and shape, which I think is kind of synonymous with the Salomon brand. The brand in general feels like it has more freeride influence. So good amount of tip rocker up here, not a ton. And then we get some nice early taper too. I'd say even a little bit more noticeable early taper than even like the Santa Ana maybe. Just maybe a little more drastic in how it kind of cuts in right at the end. And then a decent amount of tail rocker back here too. Enough to give the ski a reasonable amount of playfulness and easy edge release. But you still get a very, very strong ski. You get really, really good vibration damping from the metal. And then the QST Lux 92, on the other hand, still pretty heavy. This is over 1,700 grams, a little bit longer length here. But I think that's something that's like people get confused about with these skis every once in a while, is they kind of seem like they might be lighter, but none of the QST skis are actually that lightweight, which I think is actually important to their performance too. So in these skis we get a wood core and then we get strictly CFX, so that carbon and flax combination, so a little bit more of an energetic ski, not with the vibration damping of the Stance. And then we get really pronounced rocker, so much longer tip rocker up here and much longer tail rocker too than the Stance. So basically the difference between these 2 skis is one is going to be better for somebody who stays on trail, carves more, prefers stability at speed, stuff like that. I believe this is the widest tip up here, even though we don't have the widest waist width. This tip is massive. So this ski is really, really good in softer snow. If you're going to ski trees, if you're going to ski moguls, if you have that kind of mentality, going back to probably the blizzards and just kind of how you approach the mountain, if you prefer staying off trail, you'll probably prefer the QSTs. If you prefer staying on trail and you want something stronger, more stability at speed, more power, then the Stance is really good.
I find the Stance to be a great option for that frontside carver lady that's looking for something that's a little stiffer. I find it similar to the head, but it's obviously a lot heavier than the head.
More smooth than the head. Less responsive, less reactive.
Yeah, exactly. That weight is definitely going to help you stay on edge and on the snow a little bit easier, so it's not going to be as reactive as the head and kind of bounce you around, but I do find it to be a nice, smooth and stable, approachable ski, even with that little extra weight in there, because it's going to be a little bit more forgiving underfoot than a stiffer, like true stiff ski.
Yeah, I mean, it's still, it's still got 2 sheets of metal. Mm-hmm. It's up there among the high-end all-mountain women's skis. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like I was saying, among skis with 2 sheets of metal, it does feel like there's a little bit more playfulness and a little bit more approachability.
And that comes from that free ride feel that Salomon
exactly.
has.
They're just kind of working a little bit of free ride versatility into the shape, and I think it's subtle, but if you look at this ski in person next to a lot of these skis, you can notice the difference, and then in how it skis, you really start to notice the difference, and I think it's pretty
again,
cool.
I don't think it's meant for everyone. It's definitely meant for that lady looking for a resort ski that's an aggressive, advanced expert skier who really knows what they're doing out there. Where the QST is a little bit more approachable for a wider range of ladies because it's got that shape that's a little bit more forgiving. It's going to be a little bit easier to go off-piste into the woods and the moguls. I think this is a better one ski quiver if you're looking for that ski that, a couple inches of powder, woods, trails, everything. You can even put a shift binding and go uphill. It's a little heavier than some of the options we have on here. But I definitely put a Salomon shift binding on it and love it because it still has that downhill performance that I want, but I can go uphill with it for the rare occasions that I go uphill.
Yeah, I even know a handful of people that have put a kingpin on a QST Lux 92. Again, it's not the lightest thing out there, but if you put a lightweight binding on it, all of a sudden you've got a pretty lightweight combination, a lightweight package, and then you get really good downhill performance out of that.
And that's why I did it.
So.
I really liked the downhill performance, and I didn't want to outweigh that for just a super light ski because I really wanted to enjoy going down after working all that hard to get up there.
That's the point.
Yeah.
Some of you alpine touring enthusiasts are losing the point. The point's coming back down. No, I'm kidding. People can tour for whatever reason they want to. Next ski up here is the Stockli Nela 88. Every time a Stockli comes up in a comparison like this, it's like kind of impossible to get through it without at least mentioning the price. This ski is more expensive than anything up here by a considerable amount. I don't know exactly how much, but I believe it's probably about $500 more than the closest comparison up here. Just before we talk about its performance and stuff, all of Stockli skis are handmade. There's more man hours, more labor hours that goes into their construction. Limited
production as well.
Yep. So you really think about those production hours, and that's really we have this conversation a lot, and all of these skis pretty much use the same combination of materials. There's differences among them, but some combination of wood, carbon, metal, and then a few other things. The same is true with Stockli. It's more that the way they put it together requires more labor, and then that's reflected in the price. We do get very quality materials too, but I think the attention to detail in manufacturing really is where you justify the price, or at least where I justify the price. Anyways, 88 underfoot in this Nela 88. A super light wood core, and it really is impressively lightweight thanks to that core. This ski has 2 sheets of metal. One of the sheets of metal is the actual top sheet of the ski, so it's what Stockli refers to as tie tech. Couple benefits of using metal as the top sheet of the ski. One, it's more expensive, again, but you're eliminating a material. You're eliminating a layer of the ski. We kind of didn't mention that with the head core, but they're doing it in a slightly different way. Both of these brands have basically gone away with a traditional top sheet material. For Stockli, it's just the metal, and then they print the graphic into the metal. That means this ski with 2 sheets of metal is just over 1,500 grams, and it is impressively light when you hold it. Lightweight, but you get 2 sheets of metal, so you get a pretty darn strong ski too. So it's really pretty impressive when you think about its resulting performance, which we'll get to in a second. More of an on-trail shape here, not much tip rocker up here at all. There's quite a lot of camber underfoot. It's not high-rise camber, but most of the ski is camber. And then almost no tail rocker whatsoever and a pretty squared-off finish. So lightweight, but you get the strength of metal and the precision of that shape. So for an advanced expert level skier, it's an absolute blast.
I was very surprised to see the weight. I had no clue how light these
They're
were.
very
because
light.
They're known for their 2 sheets of metal and being a smooth and stable, high-performing ski. You know, they have a high price tag, but they're worth that price tag if you can afford it. You're not going to be disappointed. But it definitely is cornered into a resort ski on trail with that long camber and that, you know, very little tip rise. It's not going to be much fun. I mean, you can still have fun. You're just going to have to be able to know how to release your tails in the woods and the moguls.
Yep.
But it's going to be one of the, you know, best carving skis that we've talked out up here. So if you're really just looking for a carving ski that's beautifully made, Stockli's where you should look.
Yep. Some great footage to go along with this ski, which you're probably watching right now. That's one of our kind of studio ambassadors, Jenny Edwards. She has a competitive mogul background, so for somebody like her, kind of unweighting the tails is no big deal, and she can make this ski do whatever she wants. But if you're more in the intermediate level and you want to take it off trail, it might be somewhat challenging for you. I think for an intermediate that stays on trail, it's a fantastic ski.
Yes.
Like almost like a beginner could ski these too, because they're so just like refined. They're lightweight. They don't feel too like demanding, but then the performance ceiling, like the amount of skiers that can ski them is huge.
The one of the biggest questions I get is if people want a ski that is going to be able to hold on ice and be smooth, and this is a great option for that, because even as he says at an intermediate level, you know, this is going to have that stability that like the smaller Yumi might not have. Some of the lighter weight non-metal skis. But it's still light enough that it can go to that high intermediate skier.
Yep, yeah, absolutely. Just very impressive skis from Stockli. Kind of a bummer we don't have a Kesley up here to compare them to, because those brands always kind of go hand in hand. And then to finish things off, we have 2 Volkl skis. And what we were talking about Salomon when I said these are probably the 2 different skis, or most different skis up here. These might be, it would either be Salomon or these. So here we have the Blaze 94 and the Kenja 88. Ali, I know you have spent plenty of time on a Kenja 88, so excited to get your input there. The Blaze is a much newer model for Volkl, so uses a hybrid multi-layer wood core, very lightweight construction in this ski. We get a strip of synthetic material right through the center. That's actually helping them achieve that lightweight, but it kind of provides some vibration damping too. We get a little rubber insert in the tip. The graphics of these skis are really cool because they're like somewhat translucent, so you can kind of see everything that's going on inside. And then we get a metal sheet underfoot, and it's not just for binding retention. It does go to the edges of the ski, so you get a little more stability out of that binding platform or metal platform underfoot. The result is a very, very lightweight ski, 1,450 grams we'll call it. So extremely light on your feet, very, very easy to maneuver, and a ton of rocker in these skis. So look at all that tip rocker, you know, it's almost like half the ski is tip rocker. Not quite, but there's a lot of tip rocker up there. And then there's a lot of tail rocker too. So very, very lightweight feel, a lot of tip and tail rocker. This uses Volkl's 3D radius, so the radii in the tips and tails is very long. Add up all of those things, and it's an extremely maneuverable, very catch-free ski. Super, super good in the trees. really good in soft snow, just very, very quick, and a really good choice for an alpine touring binding. On the other side of the spectrum, the Kenja 88 uses Titanal frame, it uses a denser multi-layer wood core, it uses far less tip and tail rocker. There is still some decent tip rocker in there, but not nearly what's in the Blaze. And then less tail rocker as well. Still uses 3D radius, but it's not as pronounced. So in this ski, it's 25, 14, 20. In the Blaze, it's got to be somewhat crazy because they usually are in the Blaze. It is 33, 14, 25. So you can just see that much more pronounced in the Blaze. So the Kenja is more precise on firm snow. It's stronger. It has more vibration damping. But it is nowhere near as maneuverable or as quick as the Blaze. We got like a 300 gram difference between these two skis, the Kenja being over 1,700 grams. So very, very different skis. But, kind of going back to the Stance and the QST, you could certainly justify owning both of those. Mm-hmm. You probably, do you?
I don't.
Okay. Well,
Kenja is I could. The
Yeah.
Kenja is my long-standing ski. I've had it for 8 years now. I mean, they've improved it even more since I've owned it. I have a hard time getting rid of it because it is my favorite groomer ski. For a lady that's really looking to stay on groomed trails, it's excellent for that. It's going to get that stability on ice. Like I said, a lot of women ask about ice conditions. It scares them. Are they going to be able to hold an edge? Are they going to be able to feel smooth and not chattery? The Kenja's totally going to be able to do that. With the construction, it definitely is that smooth, powerful ride.
Yep.
I don't think it's as forgiving as some of the other ones we've talked about on here. Like, say, the Black Pearl is definitely more approachable. This is definitely geared more towards an aggressive skier who really knows what they're doing out there.
I would say it's up there as among the least forgiving skis on this wall, which I don't say that as a negative. It's just the truth. It's more designed for an upper tier skier.
Yeah.
That's its purpose, and that's okay.
And they do have a secret version that's a little wider for someone that's looking for more an all-mountain feel, or maybe out West Coast when they're making a little bit larger turns. Yeah. But for the East Coast, the 88 waist is great. It's going to get you just about anywhere in the resort, and you're going to be able to have fun and really feel that power underneath you.
Yep.
Or I find that the Blaze is a little bit more approachable. Ladies that have gotten on Kenjas or Sheevas, that didn't really like those, I found they really liked the Blaze because it's a little bit more forgiving with that 3D radius turn shape. You can make a bunch of turn shapes that whatever shape you want to make. You can pop into the woods. It's just got a little bit more play and forgiveness in the feel and the turn of it. It's also lighter weight than obviously the Kenja and probably even the Sheeva.
Yep. Oh yeah, definitely.
But I still think it holds up in that chattery, what we're talking about on that ice. I still think it performs because that construction in there definitely dampens the ski to help make it a smoother ride. It's not going to be as powerful as the Kenja. Again and again, I will keep saying that. So it's definitely more approachable. But it's a really fun, super unique ski that we have out here. I almost don't think it's totally comparable to anything out here because it's a little different with that construction and that Volkl shape. They've done an excellent job kind of bringing something new to the market that can be used for uphill and resort and woods and whatever you want. Like, that would be a great one ski quiver for the lady that's, not a hard charging carver. Again, this is a great, carving ski, but someone that really likes to kind of mess around with their turn shapes and be able to do all the conditions in the woods, moguls, bumps.
Yep. There are a lot of female Volkl fans in Stowe, I think is a fair way to put it. Mm-hmm. And I talked to a lot of women last winter, and men too, really, same thing across the board, who had traditionally been Kenja skiers or kendo skiers on the men's side, and then got a Blaze 94 or maybe a rep dropped a pair off for them to test or something like that. And by the end of the season, you started seeing more and more people just on Blaze 94s. Yeah. And I think a lot of people were realizing that, although these are great skis, there's some limitations to a ski that's stiff and heavy. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of tight trees here in Stowe, and something like the Blaze 94 is just great for that application. So really, really good kind of complementing skis up here. And yeah, I do think it's pretty unique. You know, I do think we could do like a sub comparison if you went like Maven, Blaze, Sheeva, Pandora, Stargazer, and QST 92. You know, that would kind of be like the sub comparison in this comparison of more soft snow oriented all mountain skis. And yeah, I do think among that group, like you said, the Blaze is pretty unique. Pretty light, you know, that 3D radius makes it really unique. The long tip rocker makes it unique. So really cool ski, and I'm glad that Volkl has kind of gone in this direction. You know, not with their whole line. I think that would be a mistake, but I think it's awesome that they've worked some skis like this into their mix.
I agree.
So yeah, that's it. That's our comparison of, this was 22 women's skis in the 88 to 94 millimeter waist width range. As always, let us know if you have any questions. We will at least do 2 more women's comparisons in the coming weeks. So we'll talk to you then. And in the meantime, just let us know if you have any questions about these skis.
Thanks for watching.
Bye. Sweet.